Good afternoon. Happy Friday, LinkedIn friends, HubSpot Nation. Welcome to another episode of Let's Build GTM with Mr. Rob Jones. How you doing, man?
Feeling your Friday energy. It's good.
Yeah, I've been told otherwise already today. So thank you.
Already.
But it was a fun night last night. I drove over to Austin in the afternoon. Met up with some HubSpot community champions. Got this sweet shirt. Thanks so much, Gabby, and thanks for putting that together. It was good to see people in person, man.
Yeah. You told me earlier, excuse me, that you've done 400 shows and you've been in this ecosystem for a while, and this is your first HubSpot shirt. I find that almost disrespectful to an
It
extent, hard to
is,
believe. You know what I mean?
honestly. I went to 2 inbounds, did nothing to solve it. I've got like this stuff over here, but it's not the same as this.
I
But
mean,
I
as
guess
somebody
maybe
who
I was
makes,
holding out for like something super legit, like these
yeah,
Texas shirts she made.
yeah, it's
That's good.
it's a good piece of HubSpot. As somebody who makes their own HubSpot related shirts and whatnot, I mean, I
Oh
can't really
wow, this guy.
complain. But yeah, I
You're
have a
good at
couple,
flexing,
but
Rob.
I have way more of shirts that I made for myself. So
Yeah. I always try to be committed, but it's never not much in compared to the mayor of Inbound.
I gotta have something, man. You do 400 shows a year. You don't need shirts. I gotta have some angle for not doing as many shows as you do.
yeah. Uh no. So yeah, I got back late last night. Still got up at the same time, still knocked out 3 shows to start the morning. Um it's just so much fun, seeing Nico and George and like just people just sharing, getting excited about GPT image generation. I don't know if you've seen that
It's
this week.
it's hard to keep up with. Who
Yeah.
else was there? I mean, I feel like everybody lives in Austin now for
Oh no,
whatever.
that was so I saw those guys this morning. Got to do
Oh, okay,
content
okay,
with
okay,
them.
okay.
But Charles Zelmer from uh, Bayer Bradford and Data Warehouse IO was there, and we actually met in 2019 at an in-person hug when they were only in person.
Yeah,
So it's good to see the HubSpot community team trying to get like the local, in-person scene back. It's unfortunate that we can't just ask the hugs to like, get back. There's a lot of people who have started doing in-person hugs again. But without the support of Big Orange, it can be, a little challenging to coordinate and get done. But Gabby did a great job. There's some people from the product team there, some other partners, some customers. It was a good mix.
nice.
Yeah. So
I
got
don't think
back
clubs
late.
will ever fully go back to in person only, though. I mean, it would have to almost be a different title, right? Just because
Oh,
it's so
right.
much more efficient and so much more convenient, right? To spread
Yeah.
them out digitally. It's like, why would HubSpot not take
Oh,
advantage of
yeah.
that?
Not only, but there was budget back when it was in person before, and now there
Yeah.
isn't any. And I know they are driving hard towards community and in-person stuff. So it's making its way back. It's just a different format, and it was good to see. Good to see everybody last night. Jennifer Nixon also there. So yeah, man. Now we're here. Get to dig in and give more tough love out to the community.
You
I'm
told me
just
the
gonna
gloves were already off today. So,
yeah, earlier. So the Value First series is going well, and the whole idea, not dissimilar from the show, is to like, maybe we can't do the things that we've been trying to do for 25 years, as AI kind of forces our hand, and human consumption of content and messages and just where they are has changed. So maybe we want to try some different stuff. So today was all about the ERP trap and Value First platform, how to build, the infrastructure of the business to support this kind of sharing is caring, approach to go to market. But yesterday was probably my favorite one with the managed services trap and value first delivery. So that I'm just gonna share the screen, make it easy.
Yeah.
The title says it all, right? This is the first document he shared with me, so he must be super serious about this one, man. What got the documentation muscles going here for you?
Yeah, to say you and Nico and other people have rubbed off on being able to leverage GPT to put some thoughts together quickly is an understatement. So Q4, kind of going through a new narrative, new approach, distilling things down from inputs from the economy, from the ecosystem, from go to market into this kind of one response. We did that. I just didn't have enough context. I've been in what is it now? 2025. So right at 4 years, I want to say. So I haven't been here very long, and all of the things I'm hearing now with like there needs to be a change, growth at all costs is like why? What did that mean? What were people's thoughts? Right. So even right away is like for much of 2010 and into the 2020s, a lot of B2B companies operated under a growth at all costs mindset. So just being able to have some more context. I think you had also told me, because a lot of my usage of GPT is quick, right? Like it doesn't need to reason very long dealing with me and my prompts. This one took like 17 minutes.
Deep research sounds
yeah.
like. That's
so
awesome.
And then it spit out, just like a 25-page report, which I thought was pretty wild. But it's good. It gets into I wanted it from like different eras within that. So it's, pre 2020, the pandemic, and then post 22 and the correction is kind of the different timelines. I think to say that pandemic in 2020, 2021 was not like the crux of people realizing, if we can't, shout out Ben Samuels and WeWork for his speech and that whole thing. But there just needed to be a new approach. And so understanding the why, the context that led in, how it was done before, what people's mindsets were before, what businesses' mindsets were before, with a little more granularity was why. I just sent this to you too. So unless we want to read it or go through it, I don't know. I wouldn't put it past you to be able to speed read this thing and crank out, some sort of executive bluff type thing. We could probably do that with GPT to, live on the call to like, hey, summarize this into a couple points. But that was the impetus for it. And because you are, sharing value first and all these different mindsets, frameworks, this is really good stuff. Felt like, hey, I'll bring something to the table today.
Yeah. Well, no, I appreciate it. You just gave me an awesome idea. Definitely downloading this. And as those who follow me know, that generally my Claude is my weapon of choice, my collaborator of choice. So I'll download this and throw it in the value first framework project and see what we get. But
I'm almost done talking until it happens, because this was with GPT, right? So even like the cross LLM approach of like, I kind of want to hear Claude reason a little more emotional, or not reason, but use a little more emotive language potentially in explaining this. That'd be cool.
Yeah. But I would love to just hear you wax poetic about this one. I mean, this was why I was scrolling through, like, oh man, yeah, if we could just be done with this whole thing. And this is like less, I think, even dependent on that era. It's just businesses really not understanding almost anywhere how impactful quotas are to like just everything that we do. When you see this, like what comes to mind?
I mean, I kind of experienced that as a sales hire with a weird onboarding, rapidly changing targets, quotas, team members, structure, all of it, right? But I mean, very, very specifically, right? Blitz scaling the sales force. And this was in 20, man, when was this? Trying to do a timeline. I'm horrible at dates. This would have been in 2018, 19, 20. I was there as a sales manager like when COVID hit. So I experienced about a year of this. But the company, the company that I worked for sold fiber internet in an area where a lot of people had either dial up or, like DSL light 10, 20 meg. And we're offering a gig, hard line up and down. Right. So yeah, we didn't have to do hardly anything. Like the demand generated itself. All we had to do was answer phones. Right. So even that approach went from field marketing, kind of grassroots, doing community events, getting with HOAs, getting with, champions, all of the traditional, email blasts, cold calling, all of that, to basically running a at-home, phone call center, which was awesome, by the way. As a salesperson, you don't need, for some things, and I know it's specific to like what industry, what role, what product or service, you don't need training. I mean, if you could speak English and type at that point, you were going to make money and you were going to hit quota. So there was a lot of things I did creatively just on a personal level, but I kind of experienced that. So more reps push more quota into the field, worry less about costs. That's great for acquisition. What does that say about, expansion, retention in other accounts? Not much. What does that say about, process for whenever that massive spike kind of levels out or goes down? Quotas, I kind of left at the tail end of that. It's like our dev process, the people out in the field that were building all this, they had to also move pretty rapidly. And so there was some weird choices there of like where to or where not to build. That's more from like those guys are super smart, like socioeconomically. Will people want this? What other options are there? So you kind of skip some of the things that I feel like you should do better or rush through them. Comp analysis. All of this just with my experience, because before that I was a civil servant, right? I was a firefighter. There was no, this does not really apply to Pearl Fire at all. But from my, limited pre-HubSpot exposure to what this may have looked like, it's pretty close to, exactly what I experienced.
Okay. We're finished getting I asked Claude to distill the insights here. So I'll just share. I don't know if I can't zoom in, so maybe I can make us a little smaller.
It says firefighting right there. How insane is that? Claude, quit listening to me, bro. I know you can hear and you're all knowing, but you don't need to do that. It scares me.
Oh man, reactive firefighting and tech stack expansion with minimal efficiency focus. Let's just get all the things based on how we're feeling that day. And that was a part of the episode today, actually, because a big thing when you have systems that are so restrictive and really hard to, build on and adjust, and like people just start getting their own tools. They start building what they need to build to get the job done, to serve customers, right? So like shadow IT is how they refer to that. But the universal lessons from the doc: balance metrics matter. So LTV, rule of 40, net recurring revenue alongside growth metrics. Cross-functional alignment. Implement the principles early to prevent departmental silos and misaligned incentives. Like, this is the crazy part. Like, how this is freaking common sense is what we're seeing on the screen here. Yet, yesterday I heard about an investor meeting that's like, oh, that's happening without like paid ads. It's like, yeah. And that, I mean, that's why we're here doing the show, right? Like, but that's the challenging part. It's like, how can we say it? I've been thinking about this lately. Like, do I just have to sit back and watch the train wreck and then pick up the pieces? Because I can't do anything in my power. I have not been successful at preventing the train wreck. And it doesn't matter like how many statistics, how many frameworks, proven or not, case studies. Like, I just haven't seen the needle move unless there's intense pain that requires it.
Yeah, I'm gonna look up something too real quick, but I forgot what this is called.
I am going to ask Claude here, since I'm in the Value First Framework co-author and coach project, which parts of the value first? And literally, like, if you're in the HubSpot ecosystem and you fully believe and understand the words of grow better, as HubSpot says them, and everything that they try to do as a company and a product and an ecosystem, it's what I'm trying to accomplish with value first here as well. Like, instead of growth at all costs, how about value at all costs? Oh man, maybe that's something I can run with.
Yes.
Which parts of the value first framework?
I mean, what all of this to me is almost it's pointing to, because you said like it's obvious. I can see it, you know, but it's not obvious to other people. Which I feel like, although we both kind of see that the same way, the assumption and language and whatever is, I don't know if dangerous is the right word, but it's like presumptive to expect people to have not you just said it, like it's painful, but it's not painful enough. Like,
right.
How obvious is that with anything, right? Not just business or your approach or process, but like insurance or, you know, your diet or weight or parent, anything is like, it's annoying, but it's not horrible enough for me to make a change. There's a term. I was looking for the term for that. I don't know what it's called. It's some theory, right? But I feel like that's what other people are kind of, maybe they haven't seen enough, but they also haven't felt pain big enough or specific enough or granular enough to want to overhaul everything. So there's this, there's a lot of fallacial reasoning going on, right? Like sunk cost. We've put so much time and money into this, we can't afford to change now. Well, that's not very, like that's not good logic to use. And so that's RevOps, and this kind of like aim to create visibility, like extreme visibility into everything so that your data is actionable, is kind of like the sociology of process, right? Like foot in the door or all these things. It's like, there's a sociological term for that. It's like, well, anyone could have told you that, right? Like, I just didn't know the term. I feel like RevOps gets lumped in with a bunch of stuff, but that's all it's intended to do, is like show other people with data why something should be obvious, and
Right.
have the supporting data and supporting, in our field, expertise to make impactful changes to efficiency or to growth or to return or any of these metrics. But it's not just about growing revenue, right? It's the factory model that you'd be a lot more, versed in, is like, if we add 2 less drops of this polymer, you know what I mean? Like, then it's going to save us $10,000 a year across all tiny little changes, very specific and intentional changes. As you scale, can have monumental impact. And that's what it's aimed to do.
Yeah.
And so think about, you could probably point to something that you've seen or that you're doing that's like, this is 100%, or I don't know if you'd go there, but like, this is 99.8% good. What about the other 0.2? Like, what sort of impact would making the 0.2 change to the good have on everything else? And so if you're at 50% or 40, where you don't have sales teams defined, quote, like all of this, the results of the fallout are, pretty catastrophic.
Yeah. No, I agree. And that is like 100% RevOps, like provide visibility. I try to avoid the phrase data-driven decision making, and instead use data-informed like decision making, right? Because data-driven, you just sit there in meetings and it's like, okay, we're clearly not understanding any of the context.
It's not, that's not even good.
Right?
I mean, yeah, that's a really good point. It's not data. What'd you say? Data centric or data
It's
driven?
data-driven versus data-informed.
I would say that's even still not good enough. It's data fluent. And think about that from like different areas that you're in and context switching and having to be a partner for people in healthcare or in manufacturing or in whatever. Like you need to be fluent in how you approach data, your terms and acronyms and alphabet soup, what this means, what it means to them. There's a fluency required whenever you're having all of this data, making sure it's accurate, and then being able to translate the impact of that to other people, and also like translate it when it's coming and when they're speaking to you or when you're receiving the data points, right? So there's like a certain level of fluency, I think, that's implied or required to do it well.
Yeah, for sure. And just to get into a little bit of what Claude says here, because this specifically got some examples. So natural flow versus artificial control, like almost all of it comes back to like some artificial control or complexity or something that's been added in because of what we want to happen as a business or as an individual versus what the customer wants, right? And so I trying to preach a little bit like removing barriers. And again, this originated from AI. It goes to value flow at all costs as you're thinking about your business and your business processes, because it naturally does what it needs to do when you create the space for it to happen, right? And so it says this applies especially to the marketing and sales functions where artificial pressure in the growth at all costs, era created misalignment with actual customer needs. Two personal examples, and I'm trying to think about like my role in the partner program and also talking to the partner team themselves. It's like, okay, a lot of people need help with HubSpot. I'm not the guy that's selling for points or like building for points or servicing for points. There's a bunch of people that don't need either of those things, right? And my first organic customer, because naturally you start with a couple people I got done with a consulting project, and I found myself looking for things to do in their portal so that I could keep managed points. And as soon as that happened, I was like, no, you can't. That's not in the customer's best interest at all. Like if I'm taking that perspective, right? And the other thing, and this is why I'm not the sales like demon that's just gonna get out there and close. Anytime I have the feeling of, man, I could use a little bit more money this month. Let me see if I can go close a deal by the end of the month. It's like, there's no reason, so I'm going to ask the customer to act before they're ready or open to it, or I'm going to try and convince somebody to act because I need, for my reasons, like solely, right? At that point.
Yep.
Yeah, versus like the week after the first, right? And there's so much of that scarcity mindset and artificial urgency and all this stuff, right? That is just so prevalent. And that's where quotas and all, like, it's not a surprise that we scroll down and the first one it picks is measurement. Like all of the metrics that we have drive so much of this behavior.
Yeah.
And it makes it hard for leaders to change. Like when that kind of metric expectations are coming like from the board and like just the whole, like, this is how we've done it. This unicorn like had these kind of numbers. Like, so you got to have those kind of numbers.
Well, I mean, there's benchmarks that are important so that you have some sort of guide or example. But, to your doing extra stuff in a portal, like some of that implies that you have a vested, not that you wouldn't, because obviously your example, you did have a vested interest in their, like, what's best for them. And it's not for you to just make stuff up in order to, have other ways to charge or bill for your services. But if as an org or a managed services provider, if your team or your person that's helping lead that doesn't know the number one, what they're prioritizing, their goals, their values, their structure, but number two, like what's possible to get them to that level. If they can't see a year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years ahead, 10, then everything you're going to be doing is more reactive to, all right, I'll just wait on them to tell me the next thing. Whereas the whole data driven thing is like, here's the data. Let's, cliche as hell, but let's drive towards this next goal or benchmark or thing on the roadmap that we want to accomplish. And so to me, it's part of the difference. It's like the value first point isn't taking any of what your business, it's so hard in service, dude. It's just not
right.
It's a hard balance because you do have to say, like, if we don't do this thing, there's no chance this other 2 or 3 things is going to happen.
Yeah.
This is a requisite first. This is a stepping stone. We weren't thinking about that. I'm telling you should be thinking about it, right? Like,
right. Well, that's where, like, in the background, a lot of these cases, especially from the manufacturing space, and this is like, it's funny to listen to SaaS people that just do not understand how a deal process can take longer than a couple of months. Like, everybody's bought in, but there's literally nothing this team is going to do to move because they don't have the budget, or they've found whatever reason, right? And there's no manufactured reason that you can create to get them to move. And that's just how some industries, operate until they feel intense pain, like, plants exploding and stuff like that. But because this is where it should be, the research showed how metrics like MQL volume or sales quota attainment in isolation created perverse incentives. We want to align teams around shared outcomes instead. And that's where, how I operate. Like, guess what? We get rid of the freaking label MQL.
Yeah.
And it can't create perverse incentives anymore. And that's exactly why I believe HubSpot has started moving, on the lifecycle stage naming, and have created more flexibility in how we do that. Because it's, like it or not, HubSpot is smack dab in the middle of, some of the habits that SaaS in general, right, have enabled in B2B. So it's been good to watch them move a little bit on some of these fronts, right?
I mean, even that's like, all right, we have more budget, we got more revenue. Let's just dump across, like, let's increase marketing by whatever 20% and do all that, instead of going granular into what actually was working, where to cut, looking at it on a incredibly detailed level. But I would also say, like, it takes a long time to change behaviors. It takes a long time to change collective behaviors, and it takes even longer to change, like, ideologies. Until let's just say the pandemic, right? But we could go back. That worked well enough, like, I'd worked in insurance for a while. I don't know how you can just tell me to shut up, but, like, it's an incredibly small margin business anyway, because you have to pay, like, that gets into more of the, like, perverse and morally weird if everybody has a rate hike and there weren't any client, like, if that didn't meet the threshold, but that it's built to be like a 2-3% business. That's fine. That worked so well for so long for most companies. Even SaaS is relatively new, right? For how long business and industry and manufacturing has been around. So I don't necessarily think this is the interesting part about AI is like, if you could build a company, how would you build it? Like, take this value first thing and like, how would you structure everything? How would you even have a marketing? Like, that kind of stuff is interesting because people have been operating this way for the majority of the time that people have been doing anything, right? If we sold this amount of this product this year, this was our marketing budget. Here's what sales teams did. All right, we made, we were 110% to goal. What do we do with that 10%? We invest it back in and hire. So the whole pandemic with in-person, with things being shut down, all of that, it's probably happened more times than just COVID in history, right? I know some crazy stuff happening with the housing crisis in 2000. So it takes something like global to really necessitate global change. It takes like a massive event for people to say, all right, we're not investing again, right? I keep pointing back to the whole, bubble of investments, especially in SaaS, where, I watched a podcast and I think they said they invested a whole bunch and now they saw where their investment went, nowhere, like lost a whole bunch. So instead of, $200 billion cash reserve they were sitting on at one point before as COVID were going on and people were investing more, it was like $1 billion. So people are investors, the people that have the money to, to throw into businesses and to invest, they have to see stuff like Rule of 40. They have to have these kind of benchmarks. They have to know a company is going to be efficient and really fiscally responsible, I think is what a lot of that gets down to from an investor standpoint of like, if you don't know what the hell you're doing, then go figure that out first. Right.
Right. And that's where, a lot of this is like people have been found out, like you don't know what you're doing and you just thought you could just pump money in and get a big SDR team and just like, it's like, no, your product sucks. So none of that is going to help you.
Well, that's what I was saying. Even 5 years ago, that's not to any like massive scale or level, but like that, I saw that work, it's great. It worked.
Right. Well, it's the whole Salesforce, like the whole IT based ecosystem of, oh, this is the only way you can do it. So you get stuck in the contracts and you get stuck with managed service agreements. There's nothing you can do about it. Like that's the whole ERP like space. Yeah. It's crazy. And I'm still watching today how, you have to get like 4 partners involved. None of them talk to each other. Everybody's speaking a different like language and the terms that they use. And it's like, of course, this is why users hate their ERPs. They hate the experience. And that's where like leaders, like, well, after they invest and then they go through that process and then it doesn't work, right? This is where these unsustainable workloads, unrealistic expectations, treating people as resources to be optimized, even if they know this stuff is happening and they can see people burning out, they might mention it and say, oh, we got to do better. But then the next day, it's like, oh man, we're behind on our quotas. And that will flip like the mindset immediately. I've watched it happen. And that's where it's like, they're in a position where they literally cannot change from that because they start thinking about the next board meeting where they've got to start explaining those numbers. Right. So it's not a great position, for them to be in. And just so much of this is aligned with those like net new and, lead generation, like top end that you've got to hit to, just to meet all these like when it's growth at all costs, they found some, leading metrics, created the funnel and just like pound it. Like, and of course people are going to not survive. Companies are not going to survive while everybody's dealing with the expectations of the unicorns. And we got to do what we can to help people out of that. Cause that global thing that you just mentioned is AI.
Yeah.
Right. And that's like, you've got
It also doesn't apply the same to like weight or amount to everybody. You know what I mean? It's not global in how it impacts people. As a matter of fact, some people may still think this is a bad idea. Yeah, there's
Oh, for sure.
a whole host of other factors that go into that too. I even think the more I hear you say value, I you inspired me to come up with like, if it's value first, like how can I put like a Rob spin on that? And I came up with something that I think you would like, and it fits into that. And it's more of it's not value first. It's like value only, and it's kind of a play on Sangram Vajri's like flip the funnel, but it's not that at all. It's not ABM,
Right.
and the whole customer centric mindset is already there. But it's a concept of even the bow tie, right, is still an ant farm of us looking at like a whole bunch of people and going through. The customer doesn't see a funnel, they see a tunnel. So the concept is tunnel vision, right? And what that does is like you need continuity over closure, right? Like traditional is close one, move on. Tunnel vision is like the relationship begins at the close. Think about, how I love this expression because I've never done business on a golf course. I really suck at golf and I've barely ever gone, but like that's the whole thing. Like used to do business on a golf course and shake hands. For me, it's more, here's a weird example, but like I have a Pokemon guy. Like the family and I, all the kids started collecting cards. Right now there's like some weird like scalper crisis where there's none available. And I have a relationship with this dude who's like a shop owner. And if there's anything in, I got a guy for that. Right. So cost, not as much it's not the first thing I think about. I just think about, I trust him. And so if he's adding value to me, that relationship can deepen. Recurring value over one-time transactions. It impacts, there's a compound effect that happens to that. So the focus leads to like momentum instead of velocity, right? Like you have to get going and add value. It picks up as you go. There's a whole bunch of other stuff with that. The visual concept was the coolest for me because I don't think we'll ever get rid of the funnel for people to kind of understand it and know. But if you're looking at a bow tie, this concept is more, number one, the customer sees it like this, like you would prefer, and they see a bunch of tunnels everywhere. It's like, oh, I can go look at Salesforce and go down this hole or HubSpot or Dynamics or whatever. The fun, like the amount of getting in to this funnel, think about like a manhole, right? Like it's uncomfortable. It's something that people want to avoid. Now they're doing it. 80% of the buyer's journey is done. But when you get in there, you should have some sort of expansion. So it's more comfort. It's more valuable to them. And the bow tie flip part is like the right side just shifts down because after close one is where the relationship is intended to deepen for them. How much value do they receive from this? We see it with tons of, so Amazon's a great example. Like, oh, you mean I can buy this on it? Okay, I'll do that. You mean I now can watch like football and TV for $16 a month? I can have stuff shipped next day. Yeah, I'll pay for that. If you can figure out, to your point, how to continually add value or enhance the value already provided, to me, it's a cool like tagline. It's a cool approach. The visual is pretty cool. And more than anything, it kind of shifts it from, let's look at our ant farm of MQL to SQL conversion to qualified deal to, to close one to whatever, to the customer has to even know that you have an offering first. And as they kind of move into this tunnel, the tunnel vision concept is like, we're only focused on you singularly. And that should be reciprocated in how they experience the offer. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think like what's interesting is that like, so at the audience level, I think when everybody's learning and there's no exact problem, it's like the opposite of tunnel vision and they just see everything all the time and they kind of go like where, their interest in that moment like might take them. There's so many factors involved in what you decide to focus on, like, and it's not always like pain related, right? But as soon as they move to like, okay, I got something to get done. I got to research like what's happening to try and solve my problem. That's where it's like, bam, like tunnel vision for sure. Um, and that's where like a lot of what's coming up as I do this series is like the industrial age mindset overall tries to make everything act like a factory, right? Because you can control it, you can measure it, you can understand it, lots of reasons. Like you can manage it at the end of the day, and that's what those systems are all about. But the journey is inherently not linear. It doesn't always go one way, and I think that's where the bouncing back and forth through from stages, like while the metrics have to be like in a flow, with whether it's a flywheel or a funnel or a bow tie, like it doesn't it still doesn't match. It's still for us to try to understand how our processes are working, right?
Yep.
And I never said that about the flywheel before, but it's not hard to say like, okay, if the customer goes back, like in its flywheel model only, that halts momentum of the flywheel. Like if they're going back in the journey, but it doesn't at the end of the day, right?
Right.
Because you just give them outs, right? It's like, okay, maybe not right now. You just go out. We're not going to try and like relabel you to go back to this stage, like, and we're not going to like closed lost you, like, and not talk to you ever again, right? It's like you said, it comes back to relationships, like in managing an honest relationship and just building value on top of value. This doesn't mean like I'm going to the other side of the world and just preaching HubSpot to somebody that speaks a different language and is in some like non-market. They're never going to be a customer. Like I'm not just giving away value to people who might not like bring the value back, right?
Yeah.
But so I just caution people from looking at it that way. It's not like getting reckless, but just say like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna do whatever, and you know, like the value will come back some way. I say that a lot, but the direction that's like it's on LinkedIn for a reason, right? I know this is possible in the HubSpot ecosystem. I know we talk about challenging topics for a reason, right? Um, and so I think that's what comes to mind is just uh, burn it all down, man. I mean, honestly, that's what AI is gonna do if we don't get our shit together because it doesn't have time and it's not going to put up with all these frameworks that don't make sense and don't
Yeah.
match the human behavior that it knows at this point better than we do. Right?
There's a lot of good stuff in here, but to that point, one of the things or one of the pillars is like tunnel vision shifts the GTM motion to recurring relevance, which is it's always aligned to what matters most to the customer, not what matters most to the org. Which
right.
That from recurring value or recurring revenue or whatever to recurring relevance is, I think, a weird unlock for me, right? And you could probably freestyle 8 different examples of that right off the top of your head.
Well,
I just don't want them to be angry examples.
Well, no, that's such a good way because and when we say customer, like similar unlock for me earlier this year, because I just could not get like if I'm telling people that somebody can be a customer, we can, if we want to design this customer experience throughout the whole journey, right? We could call them, if we want, a customer whenever the first exchange of value happens, even if it's an email for a webinar, right? So then if I'm saying that, like, why do I have a specific stage also called customer, like right after closed one, right?
That's because, so again, I'll just answer you from this kind of framework, or I know you just said you hated that, but from this perspective, is like when the deal closes, the relationship opens. Like there's already familiarity, but it becomes, instead of like inform, whatever, it's like that's when the relationship opens. And that's when, instead of just running forward to see how much money LTV you can get out of them and what, what you can push or what, that's only putting it in terms of that seems fake. And it's probably too harsh to the funnel or bow tie or any of that. Like I know people aren't only concerned about money. So I'm not saying that at all, but just the visual of it flipping to deepen is the concept. Like tunnel vision is more of a relational go-to-market, which sounds like something out of 1985, 1995.
Right.
But I think that's kind of where we are with how much is out there, how much how much ad is out there. Like I get called 8 times a day by these insurance people or like Ultima warranty or whatever. So now if I see a number I don't know, I've been behaviorally conditioned to just answer it yelling, right? Or to block every number. I blocked a friend's number. I didn't have their number, but I blocked it because it was a 662 number that I didn't have. And they messaged me somewhere like on LinkedIn, wherever it was. It was like, I've been trying to get in touch with you. Here's my note. I was like, oh shit, I blocked that. I thought you were calling me about like back taxes that I don't even have a business of my own. Like, why are these people calling me? So if you can position it that way, it's not about their value or your revenue goals or success. It's about mutual success. It's about shared success. And also the relational part kind of implies that both sides have some grace, right? I mean, I think that element's important too, in a world where, everything is so instant. There's all this dopamine and instant gratification, and like the customer is always right is also kind of a dangerous one for certain customers, right? Because a lot of times they're not. But it implies that there's kind of the ability for a company to like mess up or do something, own it, and repair the relationship, right? So I don't know. The more I think about this, it doesn't do away with value first. It doesn't.
Oh, no.
Not at all.
Because that's how like the tunnel needs to be exclusively value based, like for people to move anywhere in it, right? And I think like that grace, it's a perfect way to put it, because we think just because they paid us that, okay, and this is why I've wanted to change that stage also of customer. It's like, okay, the company's a customer now, but now I'm working with somebody else to implement the product, and they've never met me before. We never talked. There's no trust there. Like we don't have any relationship. So we got the champion. Now he's bringing other people into the tunnel, and they've never been there before. And we're just going to assume that everybody's going to move down the tunnel and they care about the same things. And that doesn't happen. That's why we hear about all these horrific onboarding stories. And so if you think about, like, we know the promised land relates to adoption of the product, right? And in order to adopt, and a good signal is like, okay, I see what this is doing. I think this can work for us, right? So they realize the value. In order to realize the value, you need to create value, right? And it doesn't matter who shows up. That person, it could be a leader, it could be a middle manager, it could be an individual contributor. They've got to find a way to create value with the relationship that has been put on their plate.
And look, I don't want to get myself canceled with this framework 10 seconds after, whatever the word is, putting it out there. But I also interestingly think this framework, this positioning gives more, there's grace, yes, but it also gives credence to both sides being able to terminate a relationship that is consistently detracting or removing value from either side. Right. That's the point, is like, if we suck, we're going to fail. Like we're no hard feelings. We need to get our stuff together at the same time. And again, not enough time left for you to regale us with some stories of exactly what I'm about to say, but you can also fire a customer, right? Like if they're consistently not paying on time or missing invoices or you know, it requiring 3 times the bandwidth to deliver something. All of that is like, all right, we've done all that we can. It's not working out. Let's you know, part ways.
Yeah, no, that's where it's like it happens all the time when somebody buys in and then just thinks they can just delegate it all away and not be involved at all, right? And that's where you got to find a way to step up and say, look, like clearly, like this is not, we can't create all the value. Like we don't know your processes, we don't know your business, like, and we don't want to just take all your money from 12 months and then like you're gonna leave a terrible review. You're gonna tell people how much you spent on us and nothing happened, right? Nobody wins there, and
Yeah.
you don't get anything done for 12 months, right?
Right. Well, it really leans to, and I'm very fortunate to be at a place where the operating principles and values are something I'm fully bought into. But like as that relationship starts at the close, like let's just say that. I mean, I know it really for us it starts more in the sales process. We just got an absolutely killer team with Matt, Vinny, Megan, but that also I mentioned grace, the way in which you deliver the value, like your operating principles, your philosophy, do you overcome, do you own things, do you drive decisions? Like that's what it is for us. A lot of people have kind of similar credos, but that allows for quicker iterations so that the value exchange is also recurring, right? The customer can be like, hey, I love the approach. This was funny, but it was somebody that we had, and it was like, if you send me, I love you guys, but if you send me another Loom video, I'm going to explode. I'm going to have a stroke. It's too much. I prefer reading, right? So it was like, some people don't want to watch Loom videos, even with it being sped up. Maybe they want something like a PDF or whatever to dig into. At the same time, we can also derive value. It goes back and forth, right? Like, did you guys ever think about doing this? No. Did you guys ever think about, aside from our current engagement, like, here's an awesome tool now that you trust us. It's not even business related to what we're doing, but I want to add value just in your experience by somebody that you trust with your goals, with business, whatever it is. Here's this other really cool thing. So the value exchange is also recurring, not just revenue, not just we pay you and you should do this for us, but the exchange of value should be recurring as well.
Right. Yeah. It's recurring. And there's like a feeling to it that it's like, this doesn't have to be forced.
Right. You call it value flow, which I like a lot. Like a regular Mihai Csikszentmihalyi.
Like it just goes where it needs to go. Like so much of this stuff. And like if we can't get leaders to embrace like the whole dark funnel, which by the way is word of mouth that has been happening since the dawn of time. Like you can't measure it. Okay. Like you cannot measure it the way that you want, right? To just forecast. And that's where like what you can do is you can understand how relationships are built and how trust is built and how to discover what somebody cares about in terms of what they're going to see as value for them, right? And so much of it is based on this back and forth exchange that is very much the opposite of just, oh, that's another one, let's get it through the funnel. Okay. You know, like so much of this is just, you can't treat humans like objects.
Did you learn? Yeah. Interesting that, contacts are objects in CRM. I mean, interestingly, we have a conference coming up May 21st in Atlanta, the return of the bobbleheads, southbound, where this is kind of the theme. What we've been talking about is it's not the unveiling of a new tunnel vision key line, none of that, but a lot of the same themes are what we're doing there. Like Brendan, who's just a massively gifted speaker, person, writer, has an exec bluff that kind of outlines this, but it's, one of the themes that resonates with me is like, in an age where AI is everywhere, connection is still rare, and pursuit is predatory when it should be relational based. And so that's kind of the thought is like businesses have never been more equipped or have the potential to be equipped to reach customers, that they're harder to keep than ever. And like we can look at that, like go-to-market efficiency data, CAC, all this stuff. So yeah, I had to plug Southbound a minute near the end.
No, I checked it out today, and man, stacked lineup. I was kind of surprised, honestly. like,
I'm
it's
surprised.
like,
Yeah, I mean,
wow,
I'll be there, and I was
this is a real deal event, folks.
I grew up reading Donald Miller, and I know
I
he's
know.
transitioned into story brand and all that, but I was like, I'm not going to be able to handle if I can bring a book and get him to, I don't want to speak that or, jinx myself or any of that. It'd also be kind of weird, but yeah, it's going to be super cool, man. Yeah. Tell your friends.
Yeah. Well, excited that's coming together like for year 2. You guys pulled off something amazing last year as quickly as you put it together. So good to see success there. And, when you just bring good people together, doing good things, bringing value, like it's not hard to have to, justify it the next year, I'm sure.
It reminds me of this show. You got a good guy doing good things and then me. So you need to bring more people of value together in this slot.
Oh man, don't sell yourself short. You bring a ton of value that people have never seen before in this space, and hopefully we don't just have to wait until southbound and inbound to see more Rob Jones on the airwaves. And
I figured out a content recording template, and in the last day, I did 17 videos that are for 3 different series that are, I did a month and a half's worth of supplemental content to make way for some of the southbound stuff.
There you go.
But yeah, I don't ever like making it about cool wins and stories since it's here. But one of the things you just mentioned, dark social, we had a record high month for like HubSpot source deals. And a lot of them, almost half of them came after March 3rd. On March 3rd was when Not Like Us.
Oh man, where's the commission check there?
Yeah, it's Kendrick Lamar or Kendrick Lamar will strike again at some point for sure.
There you go. Yeah, lean into what works. Well, all right, folks. A lot of value shared today. I know that. A lot of value coming as we get ready for southbound. So if you're out there watching and fit on any topics you want us to lean into more, or maybe just want to join the show and come hang out like Christopher Barnett did a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Thank you, Megan. I agree. Megan Jones, no relation, killing it with video recording for sure.
That's the wife. Love you. She's very supportive watching these.
Yes. We appreciate that support. I get messages, similar messages from my mom, and that might be all I need to just keep doing the content. Right.
That's it, buddy. I will give you this bit of feedback though. I don't, if you have one of these, I have just missed it and it's my fault, but this is a call up. I was going to say, I've wanted to say something like, don't forget to get your cat spay or neutered, or good night Canada, or bye knuckleheads. Like, what's your sign off? You need a good.
I was trying to get there. I've been getting back to it, but so we hope what you heard today was helpful. Think about your go-to-market strategy, find the opportunity, and let's grow. Have a great weekend, everybody.